Welcome back to MVM, the show where we talk about all things board game related. Today we have a Kickstarter preview of upcoming card game Volfyirion. This game is from Tabula Games.
And it's based in the world of Mysthea, expanding the world of the previous game in the series.
Yeah, that's right. This is the second game in the series. And actually some of the elements of this game are going to actually be able to carry over to the previous game and are going to be able to carry over to the next game that they already have planned, which they haven't announced yet, but this is going to be, I think, a whole franchise of games. So,
and it's a really beautiful world for us to dive into. So
yeah, it really is.
Cool.
I think it's great artwork, and I think this is a good time to say everything you see in front of us is prototype. Nothing is exactly final. Some things I know we just have, like this miniature here, are going to be fully sculpted mini in the final version of the game. So if you take a look at the board here, you'll see a game already set up in progress. Now, there are a couple things going on here with the cards. First of all, we have the asset row. Just like in a normal deck builder, you'll be able to buy cards from this row to add to your deck. We've got the wonder cards, which sit under Volfyrion's lair, and we have our city cards out on the battlefield here. Now, the game ends when you've defeated one player's cities, so it is kind of a back and forth, very combative, mean kind of deck building game where your only objective really is to destroy the enemy's cities.
Part of the Kickstarter will include an add-on miniature of Volfyirion, the dragon, which is really cool and will have unique rules associated with it.
Yeah, and the dragon mini can actually be used in some of the other games as well, which is really cool.
Yes, that's the whole point, is for it to go backwards into Mysthea and then can be used in future games as well.
Yeah, in this game, Volfyirion is kind of the centerpiece of the game. In fact, the story behind the game is that we are two warring factions competing for control of this dragon. We've learned how to control the dragon. We've learned how to basically use him to destroy our opponent's cities and things like that. So it's pretty cool. This is very much ingrained in the lore. So let's talk about how the game itself is played. After you set up the game to kind of look like what it's set up here, everybody's going to start with their own deck of 10 cards, and then you're going to play a turn. To take a look at what a card looks like, there are a couple different things going on. You'll see a cost in the corner. This cost is in order to buy this card, and you'll see what it generates in the middle. There are 3 currencies in the game: command points, combat points, and knowledge points. These 3 currencies are going to be spent for different things. You'll see faction banners up in the corner here. These faction banners are going to be different. There's like 4 or 5 different factions in the game. Down here, you're going to see any secondary abilities these cards have.
We also have cards that are different colors. We have green, purple, red, and those are going to associate with secondary abilities in the bottom of the cards.
Yeah, there's something called a synergy that can happen. You'll notice some of these cards in the row have these abilities. If you've already played a card of that same faction this turn, or if you have a building out of that same faction, it'll trigger that secondary ability, and you'll get a better benefit like drawing extra cards or things like that on your turn. So on your turn, you're going to have a hand of 5 cards. The first thing you're going to do every turn is draw back up to 5. Now, the first turn of the game, you can look at this hand and you can basically mulligan. You can shuffle this hand back into your deck and draw a new hand of 5 cards to start. But in all future turns, you're going to draw back up to 5 cards, and then you're going to play all of them in front of you.
So one of the things you can do is, once you've played your cards, you'll see here that I've got 5 command points, which is denoted by this circle here. This is a knowledge point one. I can now spend these 5 command points to buy something from the row if I'd like to.
Yeah, and these cards that you buy in the row are going to go directly to your discard pile. You can also use your command points to move your troops around your board. Troops are going to provide additional defense for your city. For example, this soldier here provides 3 defense. I could pay 3, which is the cost of the soldier, to pick him up and move him to a different location. It's just going to basically bolster that location. Another thing you'll be able to spend on your turn is the knowledge that's generated by some of these cards. Knowledge does a variety of different things.
One of the things you can do with it is get rid of a card in the row.
Yeah, if you don't like, you can spend 2 your knowledge, just basically remove a card, put it in the bottom of the deck, replace it. If everything out there is too expensive, maybe if you're just not seeing a faction card you want to see, you can cycle it through.
Another thing you can do with Volfyirion is use 8 knowledge to move him to a city.
That's right.
Or if he's already in a city, you can move him back to his lair.
Yeah, and this is one of the key back and forth struggles of the game, is moving this Volfyirion miniature. If Volfyirion is on one of your cities at the end of your turn, that city is destroyed. And like I said at the beginning, if you lose all 3 of your cities, it's game over. So if you can't pay to move him back to his lair, you're going to lose a city.
And unlike in a battle just against each other, when Volfyirion attacks a city, you're actually losing everything in the city as well.
Yeah, otherwise, which is the next thing we'll talk about, is generating these combat points. Now, there are two things you're going to be able to do with combat points. First of all, you're going to be able to purchase these wonders up here. Volfyrion's Lair has 2 different wonders available at any given time that can be purchased with strength. Now, an interesting thing about these wonders is when you purchase one, they're actually replacing a card from your deck. So you're culling a card out, removing it from the game entirely. This wonder goes in your discard pile, but when it comes back in, when you play it, it then stays in front of you and provides an ongoing ability. The only way to stop that ongoing ability from happening is to pay knowledge to tap an opponent's wonder, which is going to cut off their ability to use that until they basically pay. So that's another aspect of that tug of war I mentioned earlier.
And when you gain a wonder, when you've drawn a wonder out of your deck, you're going to play it out here in front. It doesn't go to a particular city, and then it just stays in the play area through your next turn.
That's right. And then another thing you can do with combat is actually straight up attack. So you can either attack another player directly by attacking one of their cities. You'll notice every city has a defense value, and that defense value can be bolstered by a troop that's stationed there. If you have dealt enough damage to defeat the city, which means the city's basic defense plus the added defense from the troop, then you destroy the city. If there's a troop present, the troop is sacrificed and removed from the game, but your city lives on. If you don't have a troop, any buildings in the city are destroyed, the city's flipped over, and now you're one step closer basically to winning the game. Another thing you can do with your combat is attack Volfyirion directly.
And that's difficult to do. You have to have a whole 16 combat in order to defeat him.
Yeah, it's not easy to do, but you get a huge benefit if you defeat Volfyirion.
Which is gaining his lair to your city space.
Yeah, and not only that, but the Volfyirion miniature is removed from the game. This entire wonder deck is removed from the game, so nobody can produce any more wonders. You take that layer and you add it to your tableau.
Which gives you 4 additional combat points.
4 additional combat points and another city to destroy. So once you're done,
makes it that much harder to be defeated.
It does. It's a huge benefit. I mean, if you can defeat Volfyirion, and you're pretty much winning the game at that point, almost. But
you're like the king of Misthea.
You're right, basically, right? That's what you're doing. So at the end of your turn, you look at what's in front of you. If you've played a building or a troop, they will be slotted into one of your cities. Each city can hold 1 of each. Now, if you run into a situation where all of your cities are full and you cannot place one of these buildings or troops into a city, you have to destroy one of your buildings or troops, removing them from the game and placing the building there. These buildings are going to then stay in play and provide their benefits every single turn. So finding the right combinations of buildings and troops to put out is huge.
So once you've taken your turn, you're going to then refill the row. You're going to refill the wonders if any have been purchased. And then the next player takes their turn.
Yeah, and this is going to continue back and forth with you just drawing 5 cards, playing those 5 cards. You can't hold on to cards for next turn to try to set up your big combos. You're discarding everything at the end of every turn and starting over fresh. However, you can leave those cards out there. So deciding which buildings to buy and which troops to buy to leave out is, I think, one of the interesting mechanics to the game. And like I said, this is definitely a combative 1v1 combat game. But there are some more modes in the works, right? I mean,
yes, so in the stretch goals, you're going to see a few different things come up from 4-player, co-op, and solo.
Yeah,
so
I'm really interested in that solo mode, how that's going to work. All right, and that is Volfyirion. You can check this game out on Kickstarter right now. Take a look at the page. You'll get a picture of the full mini that they have planned for Volfyirion. Plus, you'll see all these cards in their final state. Come back here, ask any questions, leave comments. We'll be sure to answer them. And as always, please like, subscribe, follow us here on YouTube, and we will see you next time.